Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another 3-Minute Thoughts. My name is Derek, and as we move deeper into the book of Acts, the pace of the story slows down a bit. There are fewer miracles, fewer dramatic conversations, fewer conversions, and more courtrooms, governors, hearings, and delays. And honestly, that's part of why Acts 25 matters. That's where we're going to be this morning. Most of life isn't lived on mountaintops. It's lived in waiting rooms, in uncertainty, in situations where we wonder if anything is actually happening at all. By Acts 25, Paul has been sitting in prison for 2 years. 2 years. Think about that. The man who planted churches, preached across the Roman world, and watched God move in extraordinary ways is now stuck in a legal process that seems to be going nowhere. A new governor, Festus, arrives. The Jewish leaders bring their accusations again, the same arguments, the same opposition, the same uncertainty, and yet through it all, Paul remains remarkably steady. How can that be? Well, because back in Acts chapter 23, Jesus made a promise. You must testify also in Rome. Paul's circumstances are confusing, but his calling is clear. That's a theme we see all throughout Scripture. Think about Joseph sitting in an Egyptian prison before becoming a leader, or David being anointed king but spending years running for his life, or think about Abraham waiting decades for God's promise. Think about Israel wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Again and again, God is working long before people can see the outcome. The waiting season is often part of the preparation season. Eventually, Paul appeals to Caesar, which means his case will be heard in Rome. Now, at first glance, it looks like a legal maneuver, but from a bigger perspective, it's another step toward fulfilling God's promise. The very opposition trying to silence Paul is actually helping move him toward the place God said he would go. That's one of the greatest ironies of the book of Acts. The people opposing God's plan keep accidentally advancing it. And isn't that often how God works? The cross looked like defeat, and it became salvation. The tomb looked like the end, but it became a beginning. Persecution scattered the church, the gospel spread further. What humans intend for harm, God repeatedly redeems for his good. So what does the book of Acts, and especially chapter 25, press on for you and me? Well, it asks the question, can you trust God when your story feels stuck? Because many of us are comfortable with God's activity when it's obvious, the promotion, answered prayer, the breakthrough, the healing. But when the seasons that feel like nothing is happening, what about those? Acts 25 reminds us that God's silence is not God's absence. It also asks us, are you defining your life by your circumstances or by God's promises? Because Paul could have measured his life by prison walls. Instead, he measured it by the mission God had given him. Or another question, what if the thing that feels like a setback is actually part of God's larger plan? Because throughout the Bible, God has a habit of working through delays, detours, and disappointments. Hey friends, that's all we have time for today. Be well.